So it's something that it started here in Arizona, started with Arpaio, started with all these things, but it's spread across the country. And they're doing it in two different ways. One is developing ways in which the police can grab you and take you, and the other is making our life so miserable that we'll self-deport. This is what they've coined attrition through enforcement. It was the intent of SB 1070. So that's the situation we're in right now. But I wanted to talk to you all about how it's shifting and how we're seeing community members stand up. We had a bus that drove across the country, across the South, and anywhere there was copycat laws or there's people acting like Arpaio, we went there, and it was undocumented people. We called it the Undocubus, and it energized people. It had and it was with the thought, the same view and the ways that the freedom riders had done it, that it wasn't until unjust laws were confronted themselves by the people that were being affected that you start seeing this shifting. And we really started challenging people, and then I think that's what I invite you to do, is really challenge people to what their truth or their conceptions of this is, and really start having conversations. The way that some and others are doing it by having pen pals with people in detention. In Arizona alone, there's currently 6,000 people that are in detention. They have no idea when they're going to get out. Immigration detention is very different than prison. You don't know. You just wait, go through your courts, and sit there. So with that, my wife is getting her master's in education, and we were talking about how people have certain truths or to them, and as we're young we start developing ideas, and when you start shifting it in young kids, a couple of the examples were, all these animals are mammals, right? These animals are mammals, and then you bring up a whale, right? And it's so different than the others, and then you try to teach a child this is also a mammal, and it just doesn't compute. Same thing happens with fruits, right? These are all the fruits, and then you bring in a tomato and say this is a tomato too, and you usually put it in different parts of your brain, and it becomes your truth. And as kids, that becomes your truth. There's a conversation I had with I guess what I would call a counter of the work I do, and this person was protesting a day labor center that I worked at for 4 years. And they were there every day for 3 years. And they were successful in shutting down the day labor center where people didn't want to pick people up. They were really successful. And got to know them, and they were really negative, and they would carry guns, and they would shout things at people, and just be really negative people. But as time went on, I kept saying hi, kept trying to talk to them. Eventually got a couple of them to start a conversation. And one of them started telling me how she really felt, and I had never had that. And I think because I am who I am, and I look the way I do, and I come with this experience, it's really hard for me to get in that conversation of what's really going on. And I remember her sitting there and just, I don't know if I caught her at a different moment, and she started telling me, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that my kids, that your people, and she was honest in telling me, your people are going to change the way of life for my kids, for my grandchildren. And this is the same person that had talked about shooting women and children as they cross the border, as a solution. But she started really opening up and talking about her fears. And her truth was in her head that her life was changing, and her children were going to be unsafe, and that her children were going to suffer. And that was her honest truth. And just like I see this young woman I put up here, and my truth is she's suffering, and I want to help her, and Arpaio's causing it, and all these things are causing it, to her, she saw something different. Obviously disagree with her, and I try to explain my point of view. It didn't stop her from continuing to do what she was doing, but she had that conviction. She was doing it for some reason. And I bring that up because I wish I could keep talking to her. I almost wish I could develop a friendship with her and continue those things, continue understanding how she feels. In my absolute truth, she's wrong. She's wrong. How can she feel that way? We're not here to do that. And then I start thinking historically, I'm Yaqui. Our people were here, and you have all these confusing things happening in your head. But there was a moment there where we were talking truthfully, and I think when it comes to issues like this and different issues that we talk about, I think that's the important time, and I think that's where breakthroughs can happen, when you can get to honestly talking about what's going on. Wanted to close off by one of the sayings that I've grown up in being in different circles is in Lakesh, a saying that I was taught at a young age. Comes from the Nahuatl language, and it means you are my other me. And similar, I think someone mentioned that earlier, that if we live that way, thinking of others as ourselves, that's when you can change. And I think my life has been. I feel like I've lived a long life, even though I turned 30 in 2 weeks. But from the first time I went on a field trip my senior year in high school, to put water in the desert, and it was, I didn't know what I was doing. I just went to go, and they gave me a blowtorch to fix up and patch up a thing. I happened to see a dead body, and it really changed my life from there on. And that quote of Cesar Chavez of how you live your life and what you do with your life, clicked at a very young age for me. Seeing my family go through what we went to, but it really clicked from there. And I've been fortunate enough to never. I've had jobs to pay bills, but I've been able to do this now my entire adult life, which is just close to 12 years now. And I'm very proud of that, raising my son in the same way. My wife does the same things. And I'm very proud of serving in that way and being able to do what I do. And I invite you all to just have those conversations. There's different ways you could get involved with Puente. There's visitation programs. What we did together with the UU conference in front of Tent City was beautiful. A lot of the folks in our community couldn't believe the amount of people that were there, and that experience was really beautiful, and we'll always be grateful for working together on that. Our underground library continues to function thanks to that conference in our office. So thank you for having me. I hope we could continue to work together and just whatever we can do for you all, we're there, and in that same way of we are you and you are us. So thank you for having me, and I'll be around afterwards if anyone wants to talk about this stuff.
Anyone is moved to make a contribution to Puente, give it directly to Carlos during fellowship hour. I'm sure he'd be happy to take it downtown. If you would join me now in the singing of our closing hymn, My Life Flows On, an endless song. It's number 108 in your hymnal. Please stand as you are willing and able.
I hear the music ringing.
join me in the unison reading of our West Valley mission statement, which you find in your order of service. This church provides a safe place to celebrate diversity, draw inspiration for our lives, foster social and environmental justice, and compassionately support each other in our spiritual searches. If here you have found freedom, take it with you. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Please join us across the patio.